You have to be so honest with yourself. I feel like we lie to ourselves all the time to say that we're okay about something, to say that, no, this is okay. You have to just listen to yourself and what you need, regardless of what other people's opinions are that they think you should do. It's your life in the end. You are the only one that's going to live your life, no one else.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Sam Dever Podcast, episode 105. In this episode, I speak with Gar-Ye Lee. Gar is an actress, acting teacher, and student of life out here in Los Angeles, and I have been waiting for this conversation for a very long time, and I'm so glad we made it happen tonight. I cannot wait for you to check it out. If you want to watch this podcast, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/@thesamdeverpodcast. If you want to listen to this podcast, be sure to follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Here's my conversation with Gar. Well, Gar-Ye Lee, welcome to the Sam Dever Podcast.
Thank you.
I've been waiting for this day.
It's crazy, isn't it? Yeah, I've been waiting for this day too. I'm excited to be here.
And I'm a big believer in things happen when they're supposed to happen. So even though I may have about a year ago said, hey, you ever interested in coming on? But this is the time we were supposed to do it. So here we are.
Yep, here we are.
How you feeling?
I'm feeling good.
Yeah?
Yeah. I mean, I'm a little exhausted from the film festival this past weekend at Playhouse West.
Yes.
That was so much fun, though.
Fantastic.
It was so much fun. And I met so many cool people, watched so many great films. I loved it.
Do you have a favorite film?
Oh, gosh. Oh, that's so hard. In terms of comedy, I would say Engagement Party was probably my favorite. It was just so chaotic in the best of ways, and impressive to do a one take, like 15-minute one take. And then for dramas, I absolutely loved All That Remains and The Hangman. Those two were like,
yes.
Oh, those got me.
And those were in the same block, weren't they, too?
Those last two, yeah.
Yeah.
They're in the same block, and All That Remains is was written and starred with two previous Playhouse West alumni.
Yeah.
Clark Freeman and Cassidy Freeman.
Yeah, no, it was very high quality cinematography.
Yeah, it was incredible.
Yeah.
And what really got me about the story was just like when I was sitting there, I actually turned to Doug. I'm like, oh, this acting is just phenomenal, because I felt like they really captured the essence of grief, that you can be losing something and be crying your eyes out, but also be laughing at the same time, depending on what memories you have or, anything like that. And you could just tell they really captured that so well.
Yeah. Lots of deep work.
Yeah. It was fantastic.
In that one for sure. And then The Hangman too. That one, that was a masterpiece. I love that.
So good.
Yeah.
So good. It was awesome. People don't know what they missed out on if they didn't go to that block, man.
Well, and that's the thing. You can't, that's a very good point. You can't discount any of it because there's only so many films you can put in it, and then you can't put all of them in one. It's going to be spread throughout the entire weekend.
Right.
So exactly. I was glad I went to everything because I really got, and I'm just blown away every time of just the talent that's out there.
Me too.
Just every time you're just like, geez, there's a lot of talented people out there.
Yeah. And they're in our community, which is so awesome. I sound like some walking ad for Playhouse West.
Oh, you're not. Sorry, I'm just making sure my window was closed. But no, I know you're exactly right. Like, and the feeling I got being there, and it really hit me this time around because and we'll get to our time together when Gar saved me at Playhouse West. My epic scene partner for 3 months. Man, going back, it really did feel like a reunion because there were people from my original class that were there that I hadn't seen in a little bit. And you just feel like it's just like, as a creative person, you're just like, oh yeah, this is home.
Yeah.
I just feel at home with this. This is family. It's a home,
Yep.
and it shows the importance
Mhm.
of staying connected to the community, even if you aren't. Which I'm not even active in class right now, but I still like to be around it all and go to
Yeah,
everything and
of
still keep
course.
those relationships.
Yeah, and like the film festival is something every year, it's going to be there. There's so many people that come back too, which is so great about it. People will fly in from all over. We had students that are in our screenwriting program fly out from Colorado. We've had people that are just fans of our actors that wanted to come to their Q&A and they'd fly all the way from New York or something. People come from all over and it's an awesome time to really engross yourself into the community.
Absolutely. And Eric was there.
Yeah, he
What's up?
was.
Yeah, Gar, how many years have you been at Playhouse?
Oh man, I want to say it was 2017 that I joined Playhouse.
Okay, so just kind of like a little bit before us, essentially. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't count 2 of those years because we all know why.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But yeah, a good amount of time.
And you're a teacher now.
I am a teacher now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which congratulations on that, by the way.
Thank you.
Very well deserved.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It was it is a huge honor to be asked, but and people were like, oh, I always tell people I'm pretty sure the reason why I became a teacher was because I suck so bad. I know your face is shocked, but I think to a certain extent, I really, really, really went through the growing pains, still am going through the growing pains of being an actor. You know,
I think we know what you mean. Like you had to really since you struggled so much, you got like the perspective that any student would.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you could help
Exactly.
other people that are struggling.
Exactly right. I was doing a play called Yellow Face with Holly, and I was helping her co-direct along with Froy to get that play up. And I was producing it, and she saw how much work I was putting into that play and how kind of responsible I was, I guess. And she was like, you know what? I think you'd make a great teacher. And so she went to Mr. Carnegie and spoke with him. And he goes, yeah, okay, have her start coming to my class, sit in and start learning everything that was going on. And the reason why, yeah, like you said, I just connect with the struggles that people are going through and trying to break through in terms of being an actor. And I can recognize that. There's so many times when I stood outside the door of Playhouse, but in front of the school, just bawling my eyes out. I would be inconsolable. There was one time where I was sitting in class bawling my eyes out because I didn't feel like I was doing my job properly. And I care. I want to be a great actor. I didn't come here to not do anything or not be better than good. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So like to me, I was letting my partner down. I was letting Mr. Carnegie down, Holly down, letting me down, letting my family down. It was like this whole mental, just thing of disappointment. And I didn't want to do that. And I don't want to do that.
And that's a perfect segue. If we're doing film,
yeah,
let's take it all back.
Like Wayne's World.
Fade to 2000, whatever. So I want to know your backstory, obviously, but I have to say this because we're in the moment of it, but you are a phenomenal teacher because you helped me so much. Yeah, because you it was in Mr. Carnegie's class, and there's some things that just weren't clicking for me. They just weren't clicking, and we partnered up for that first scene, and I had that first breakthrough. Of like, oh. So then we did another scene, and then it was like, oh. And then we did another scene, and it was like, whoa.
What do you mean you could get deeper and deeper and cooler and cooler, better and better.
And then we know the thing that we don't even have to speak of, everything shuts down.
Yeah.
Like,
right. Exactly.
But I am forever grateful for that. And you taught me so much. It was so great. We did some heavy stuff.
Yes,
man.
we did.
Some great scenes.
It was definitely stuff that wasn't wasn't superficial and really asked us to dig deep within ourselves of what we understood of the
Yeah.
material, right? It was,
Yeah.
but it was so much fun. I mean, would I leave class just completely like wrecked in my chest? But, but at the same time, it's like, can I swear?
Yeah.
It's like, fuck yeah. I really put some work in today and that was so much fun.
Let's do it again.
Exactly. And you want to feel like that like all the time. It's so addicting.
Yeah.
It's such a rush and it's so rewarding because then it's moments like those when you're like, that's what I've been like struggling over and racking my brain over, to connect with this and put the pieces together. And it's so worth it.
Yeah, truthfully, that's probably the biggest thing I miss most about acting is those moments on stage. Because, yeah, and you can have it in film too, right? But there's something about doing it on stage in the rawness of it. And it's usually longer takes because there's no stopping, right? There's no like cut. It's like, no, when we lived out those scenes, I mean, that's sometimes can be 20, 25 minutes sometimes on just one scene. So to have that experience, and like literally the whole world goes away. Like it's just you in this reality that you've created.
It really is. It's like this just becomes your world. And stage is just so rewarding because that is something about doing theater that you don't get in film. You're allowed the privilege of being able to really live the whole entire situation out, with film. It's one day you could be your first day you could be shooting the very last page of the the script, you know what I mean? And then you have to go back as if nothing ever happened and go from there. Or there are things like a plane goes over or the sound goes off or something breaks on set, and on stage you don't have that net. You just have to go with it. And I feel like whenever it's not the right word to say get through a theater performance or like or a play. It's when you're able to get to the end. There's this overwhelming sense of accomplishment because you're just like, okay, that wasn't horrible. Nothing crazy happened. Although one time on Really, Really, it didn't happen to me. My fellow castmate, his shoulder. Were you there when that happened?
No, when I was at that play, I don't know what
Oh,
performance.
poor Kayvon. He also goes, obviously he goes to Playhouse West, but he like threw out his shoulder on stage, and it was one of the last scenes before we were going to intermission, and he had to pop it back in backstage. So all sorts of things, like all sorts of crazy things can happen during a play, and you just have to go with it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I've seen you in that. I did see Yellowface too. I saw that one. You were in the one Andrew Grace did, the Cupid.
Oh yeah, Cupid and the End of Love.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a fantastic one. We've been talking about putting that play back up. We'll see.
That was great. Yeah, no, I remember it. So, all right, so we'll get back to this point in time, but let's take it back.
Okay.
And you can go as far back as you want.
Sounds good.
How did Gar end up out in LA?
Oh man. What a story. How do I not bore you with my life story? I'll try to hit the quick points. Growing up, I was the only person in my family that really had any type of creative leaning. My sister's a fantastic artist, but she just does it for pleasure. For me, I was always happiest when I was performing, when I was dancing, singing, acting, whatever. I even remember the first play I was in. It was in fourth grade. I don't even remember what the play was, but my line was, "Please, sir, may I have some more?" Something like that. And for some reason, I made this choice to have this weird accent, this British accent. And I don't know, I loved it. And I was so happy my parents were there. And, that was always my happy place. And for some reason, like as you grow up, people are always telling you, take the safe route. You need to go to college. You need to go do this. And everything in my being was fighting against it, right? After high school, I ended up going to the China Conservatory of Music for about a year-ish. I got really sick, came home. My mom's like, and my uncle, over a very tear-ridden conversation, they told me, you need to think about taking life seriously, going to college, get a real career. So, I was like, oh God, maybe they're right. So I went to SF State, ended up going to UC Davis, and uh, I was there and I was doing something I was really good at. I ended up being a apparel design and construction major. Um, so fashion, essentially designing and making clothes. And I was like, man, I'm really good at this. I think maybe this is something that I can balance like my creative side and a feasible, like stable career opportunity or career choice on this side. It'll make everybody happy. So that was kind of my compromise. So I ended up doing that. Um, ended up working at a jewelry store for God, several years being a designer, designing, fine jewelry, engagement rings, those kinds of things. And I was just like, okay, got into that.
Did you grow up in the Bay? Is that where we're?
Yeah, I grew
Okay.
up in the Bay. I grew up
Gotcha.
in Piedmont specifically. And I know if people look up Piedmont, they're like, oh, that's a rich school or whatever. I'm like, other people who lived in Piedmont were rich. My family was not rich. My mom worked a lot of jobs to be able to afford rent in that area so we could go to that school. Me being the idiot I am, didn't take advantage of what good schooling they had. But it was just because I was, unless something interested me, then I wasn't interested. You know what I mean? Like, but music and a cappella and things that really had me immersed, then I would be fine. But other I just like would daydream all the time, just imagine other scenarios than the one I was in, you know? But yeah, so I ended up, after I was done at the jewelry store, I ended up working at Zappos. Um, I applied there. Funny enough, they allowed you to have a video cover letter. And that ended up being, now that I think about it, my first short film. I made this whole entire story where I was like, Agent Zappos, and I'm coming to be your next, or find your next stylist for you kind of thing. And I didn't hear from them for months. And I would always reach out to the recruiting, and I never heard anything back. And all Sunday, one day I got a call. And they're like, "Hey, our video manager sent us your video," because I had tagged them in the comments, and hashtags, Zappos video team. And the video manager of Zappos forwarded my video over to recruiting, and they said, "You have to look at this girl." And that's when they finally called me. And it's so crazy. That just shows the kind of the power of, number one, saying yes and taking a chance, even though I technically didn't meet the requirements of the position. But I did it anyway because I felt like I could do it. And so I did the interview. I ended up getting hired. I was there for a long time. I made it up to where I wanted to get to in the company way faster than I thought I was going to. Um, and I was really good at my job, but I was really not happy. Like really, really not happy. First of all, once you get to a management position, it's really, it's a lot more about dealing with people than it is about creative choices. Did I learn a lot while I was in that management position? Absolutely, because I was allowed an inside scoop of, what makes emails convert? What do people respond to? How do people respond to websites? Like, I got all of this inside information, which was cool for me now. But back then, I was just like, man, sometimes I kind of wish being just a stylist, because that's when I actually got to be a little bit more creative, right? Um, my time at Zappos kind of came to an impasse, and I just asked myself, like, you know, I'm good at this, but when was I really the happiest? This is like the most money I'd ever made, but I was miserable. And I was just like, okay, if I'm being honest with myself, the happiest I've ever been is when I was performing. And when there were no other pressures around me, it was when I was performing. Without anyone telling me how to live my life, what would I want to be doing? And it was always performing. So I quit Zappos, and after about a month of really just like crying in my shower and asking myself, who am I? What am I doing? Like driving myself crazy. I went to dinner with a bunch of previous friends of mine, for previous coworkers of mine from Zappos. And this one girl told me, what are you thinking about doing next? And I was like, I've really wanted to go into acting. Like, that's what I've really always wanted to do. And she's like, oh, she was dabbling in acting at that point, did some commercials or whatnot in Las Vegas. And she was like, oh, I just checked out this school, IAFT, over on I don't remember where it is now, but she was like, you should go check it out. Literally the next day I called and I made an appointment to go see the school. And I walked around and I was like, I'm going to go here. And that's where I started taking their acting program. And the teacher of the acting program, or one of the teachers, was this man called Daryl Morris. And he went to Playhouse West. And, he was just like, you're a Marine. He has this thing where we call him the Colonel. You know this. You also, yeah.
We're going to tie this knot.
Yeah. And he said, when you go to LA, there's nowhere else you should go except for Playhouse West, because he was a Playhouse West alumni as well, or is a Playhouse West alumni. And he's like, there is no better school. You will not get any better training. This is the real deal. And when I went to audit with Mr. Carnegie, I was like, yeah, this is my home. Long story short, there was nothing short about that.
No, it's great.
But yeah, that's kind of what made me make the choice, just being honest with myself in my adulthood. And at this point, I was in my early 30s. It's not like I was some young spring chicken coming to LA and being like, oh, I came here with a purpose and knowing my age, and really it shouldn't matter, but there is some aspect that age plays into this industry, right? I was dead set to get going as soon as I got here. There was no fucking around for me. I feel like I've already wasted so much of my life trying to please other people that I just didn't want to mess around, and I don't want to mess around.
Sounds like you really had an awakening to yourself.
Yeah.
And it's very hard. And that's a lot of things we talk about on here is so many people live their life for other people and never for themselves. And it sounds like you had that moment of like, man, what do I want to do?
Right. Yeah. And what's the craziest thing? So, how you have moments in your life where it's like, I've always been someone that believed in deja vus. I don't know if you do or not, but I've always looked at deja vus as the universe kind of telling you, hey, you're in the right place right now at the right time. You're where you're supposed to be. No pressure, but you're going in the right direction. And I'm not religious, but I am spiritual, and I really do feel like when you put your wants and needs and everything into the universe, it will respond to you in some way, and I was going through a difficult time in my life. I was, my ex-husband and I at that decided to get a divorce. And what's so crazy is literally the afternoon it happened, right after we had the conversation of this is going to happen. We love each other. We're letting each other go with love. I had recently done an audition for ABC Discovers, which is a yearly kind of showcase thing that they do. And not even 10 minutes after he went upstairs, I got a phone call from them. And they said, hey, do you think you could come down to LA and audition for us? And it was one of the most surreal moments of my life, because I was just like, I feel like the universe is trying to tell me, like, I know you feel sad about this, and I know that this is going on, but you're making a choice for yourself and you're going the right direction, So that just kind of like confirmed to me that this was exactly where I was supposed to be going in terms of acting. Yeah. Isn't that nuts?
Yeah. No, I'm the same way. There's been times in my life, those just little Little subtle signs if you pay attention.
Yeah. And
You know
that's
they're
really
there.
what it is. It's paying attention and being honest with yourself. And I cannot tell people that enough. Like, thanks a lot, Eric. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. That's the universe.
It was the ghost. I swear.
No, that was the universe telling us, Gar, shut up. No. No, but it really is like, you have to be so honest with yourself. I feel like we lie to ourselves so much, like all the time, to say that we're okay about something, to say that, no, this is okay, you know, and you have to just listen to yourself and what you need, regardless of what other people's opinions are that they think you should do. It's your life in the end, you know? You are the only one that's going to live your life, no one else. So
That's a clip
Yeah.
right there.
Yeah.
That is some truth right there.
yeah.
And that's something we don't really talk about. Like, I love how you said it, being honest with yourself.
Mhm.
Like, really sit yourself down and like, no, be honest.
Yeah.
Like, what?
It's hard.
But we do that. I do that. Like, we justify.
Yeah.
We justify, oh, well, you know, or
Yeah.
this is probably for the best.
Right.
And, you know, it's just, probably wouldn't have worked out anyway. And then you
Mhm.
start getting to that negative talk and you talk
Mhm.
yourself out of so many things.
Yeah. It's hard, man. It's really, really hard to admit to yourself what you really, really want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll interject real quick about Daryl, because I've brought Daryl
Yeah.
up. Daryl is the one who connected us initially.
Yes, he is.
Because when I was in Daryl's acting class, and I can second everything you said. He's definitely
He's
ran it.
intense.
He's intense. I love him. But he ran his class very seriously.
Mhm.
And when I told him I was going to LA, he goes, "Well, you're going to Playhouse West, right?" And I said, "Well, I guess I am." And he goes,
Do I have a choice?
"Yeah." And
Okay.
then he goes, he gave me your number, I believe, and then he said, "You contact Gar as soon as you get there." And I remember I texted you like, "Hey, I'm Sam from Daryl's class. I'm going to Playhouse," and you were so helpful. "Oh my gosh, welcome!"
Yeah.
You know, yada yada. And so that's why when we ended up in class together eventually, it was like a full circle. Well, now this is an even bigger full circle.
This is an even
moment.
bigger full
But
circle.
working with you in class
Yeah.
was special in that regard, because he talked about Playhouse every single class. I'm like, I had no idea what he was talking about. He keeps talking about this Playhouse West, but sure enough, the night I audited, I'm just like, I had pages of notes.
Yeah.
I was an auditor.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah.
Yeah. This
The
is
first
place.
person in beginner who came to the door was like bawling in tears, and it was just like a huge extra. I'm like, this is the beginner class?
Yeah. Crazy, right?
So we've never done this on the show before.
I love this. Yes.
I didn't prep him today. I'm just going to call him. We're just going to see if he picks up.
I really hope he answers. Oh,
Yeah,
man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've never done this before on the Sam Dever podcast. So
He's a serious guy.
we'll see how this works out.
Did you just decide this, or was this planned?
Halfway.
Simplify, Marine.
Simplify, Colonel. So a couple things. You're on the Sam Dever podcast right now. I hope you're okay with that.
Not a problem.
And I have a special guest sitting across from me. She'll say hello to you.
Hi, Colonel.
Simplify, Marine.
Semper Fi, Colonel.
And we were just talking about our individual stories, how you introduced us to Playhouse West and how great it was studying with you. And we're grateful that you sent us out here and we've connected.
And set us up for success here, too.
Absolutely. I told you guys, I said, if you're going to do it, there's only one place to go. That's where they train Marines.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. How are you doing over there, Colonel? And we'll have to talk more in depth at a later time, but we wanted to give props where props were due.
No, and I appreciate it. Your colonel is teaching acting.
Love
So
it.
He's back to teaching acting, has been for about 5 months now. And looking at some other opportunities to teach as well.
Hey now.
Hey, that's awesome. And hey, a lot of film business is coming to Las Vegas too.
Yeah, well, they have to, the legislature has to okay the tax credits. If they do, we're going to pick up Sony, Warner Brothers, and Wahlberg.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
You hear
I
that,
wanna
Film
say
LA?
something.
Okay.
I want to say something. You have no idea how proud I am of the two of you, number one. Number two, I talk about you guys all the time. I kid you
Aw.
not. I told them if they're going to go to LA, there's only one place to study. And Gar, you're still teaching, yes?
I am every once in a while.
That is a badge of honor for your colonel.
Thank you. I'm glad
Badge
you
of
can
honor.
have that badge.
What's that?
I'm glad I made you proud.
Absolutely, the proudest. I couldn't be more proud. What's happening? Are you guys, either one of you, involved in projects?
Yes.
I'm doing the podcast right now, but trying to reach out, get a little more into the film projects as well. And Gar, I'll let you.
Oh, I'm on Avail for a commercial right now. I've been doing a lot of
Nice.
commercials, Colonel.
What's that?
I've been doing a lot of commercials.
I'm very, very proud of you. You know that.
I do. And I just finished, about 2 months ago, I did a web series. I'll send the link over to you when it's done.
That would be fabulous. Are these nationals or regionals?
Do you know how little national commercials are coming around nowadays? It's
No, I understand.
yeah, it's regional.
All right, Dave, whatever.
I mean, technically national because they're playing it all over, but it's just not SAG, that's all.
Right. But just remember something, you guys. Never stop practicing your acting.
Never ever.
It's never a bad idea to practice. Your colonel's I'm working on a scene right now. Actually, I got 2 scenes with a student, and I'm working on a big monologue.
Love it.
Awesome. Well, yeah. Let us know if there's ever a scene night or anything you're doing over in Vegas.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, if I can work that out. What I'm thinking about doing, believe it or not, is putting an ad up on Facebook specifically for practicing acting.
Yeah.
So if people wanted to bring some scenes and work on them, or do a monologue, and just, it's like an actor's retreat, basically.
And okay, so everybody, Daryl, the Colonel is based out of Las Vegas. If you didn't know, why don't you plug your class?
Yeah.
You know what I would love? I don't think I'll ever get it sanctioned, but I would love to have Playhouse West Nevada.
Oh.
That would be like unbelievable.
Hey, I think with the way the industry's going, I mean, there's more and more actors too that I know that have moved out of LA that are maybe in Vegas now and they just drive here when they need to.
Yeah.
Right.
I think really it's always been connected, but I really think Vegas, LA, especially these next several years, they're going to be considered 2 in 1 in a way. They're really getting more connected, especially with film.
Yeah, I mean, once they approve those tax credits, those studios are going to come here. They just need those tax credits, which we've been waiting for years, actually. I mean, my goodness, we have the land.
Yeah.
It's not like we don't have the land. And actually, UNLV is going to be a big part of Sony.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, exciting things. And we were telling the audience on the podcast, you told me 2 things when I said I was moving to LA. You said, you're going to Playhouse West. You didn't ask, you told me.
Right.
And in a good way. And then you said, you need to contact Gar. And I did both those things. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I told her, when I was working with both of you, I worked with Sam at the Indie Film Factory, and I worked with Gar at IAFT. I knew she had something. She had something. And I said, if you're going to move to LA, there's only one place. I'm not saying there aren't other teachers. There are. But if you're very deadly serious about the work, and I think you both know this, Playhouse West doesn't play games. You're either in or out.
Mm-hmm.
There's no gray areas with Playhouse.
Yep.
And I follow them and Tony, who's got Playhouse West Philadelphia. I follow them both on social media, and I'm constantly always giving them a badge of honor because I believe very, very strongly in the work they're doing.
Yeah, so true.
Very strongly.
And when you do,
now,
I actually see all of those, Daryl, because I actually run the social media.
Wow. Is it you?
Yeah, that's
great.
me.
That's great. So do you see my comment?
I do see all of your comments.
Right.
I love it.
It's a training ground for Marines.
It's true.
I mean, it is. I can't stress that enough. I just love the seriousness and the discipline of the work. And I remember very well when I was there, you either do the work or get out. you know, and I love that. I just love that. And if I ever get my own situation set up again where I'm running my own studio, that's the philosophy. And especially if those studios are coming here, I'm really going to ramp it up.
You know what's so crazy? I remember when I was in class with you, our class in the beginning, there was probably about 12 or 15 of us, and by the end there were 4.
Yeah. I mean, they couldn't handle it. And you have far surpassed any of my expectations. Far
Thank you.
surpassed. And Sam, are you going back?
Not at the moment, but the door's
Okay.
always open.
It is.
All right, yeah, please don't ever let that door close completely.
Yeah,
Because
we were actually at the film festival all weekend, the Playhouse West Film
Right.
Festival. It was phenomenal.
Right.
Phenomenal work.
I saw who won. That was great.
Absolutely. And Colonel, if
Yeah,
you
yeah,
could
but-
leave us in the what's the number one thing you took from Playhouse West?
Honestly, dedication and commitment and passion for the craft. And you know, you have to work 25,000 times harder than everyone else. And don't ever, 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 ever give up. Persevere. Network. Work with other actors. Shoot your own stuff. Don't wait for the phone to ring. You know, you're on your own. So collaborate. Work with people. And, you know, get yourself out there as much as possible. If you have a chance to go to an industry thing, go to it. If you have a chance to go to a casting director workshop, I mean, if they're charging you a small thing, that's fine. But, you know, another thing too, don't ever, like, I'll tell you what happened with me. Just recently, there's an agency in town. And I showed them my reel, gave my headshot and resume, and they brought it up to the people in LA. And they said, okay, we'll take him. But they wanted $500 for me to be on their website. I said, never mind. You don't ever pay anyone to act. They're supposed to pay you. So, you know, I know it's an incredibly, unbelievably, almost impossible thing to be a working actor. But I mean, you know, Gar, I know, Sam, you're kind of in limbo right now, but Gar, you've been at it now, what, 6 years? 7 years?
6 years? 7? I don't even know what year it is anymore.
You got 2017. So
Yeah,
you're
so
going
7
on
years.
7 years.
Yeah.
Right. How's Luke, by the way?
He's fantastic.
That's great.
Yeah, he's
That's
doing great.
Well,
No, I'm just, I can't tell you how proud of both of you that I am. Sam, the podcast is a major success. I applaud your tenacity and I applaud you thinking outside the box.
yes,
you know.
thank you. And I gotta, before we let you go, there's one thing I do gotta give you public credit on. Daryl, one thing he said to me about Playhouse, he said, get involved in that community. He goes, there will be nothing like it. And you know, I didn't really understand.
Mm-hmm.
I met so many people so
Right.
quickly. Within the
Right.
first month,
Mm-hmm.
I had people I was connected to and working on things. There's nothing like it. There's truly
Right.
nothing.
I
like
mean,
it.
you rehearse, you go to scene nights, you go to industry nights, you go watch a one-man shows, one-woman shows. You read, watch film. You know, if you're gonna be an actor, it's all in. There's no like gray area or you're on the fence. Exactly what Meisner and Robert Carnegie teach. Go by the film list, which I give to all my students. Go by the reading list, which I know you're both reading. I read all the time. There's nothing and it does nothing but stoke the imagination. And that's probably, other than listening, imagination is the number one thing for an actor.
Agreed.
Absolutely. Thank you. Well, thank you, Colonel, for taking the call, and thank you for introducing me to Gar. Yeah, she's incredible, doing amazing things.
Well, I love you guys both.
Love you
and
too.
from your Colonel, I say Semper Fi.
Semper
Semper
Fi,
Fi.
Colonel.
Love you too, Colonel. We'll talk later.
Thank you for
Very good,
everything.
sir.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, that was special.
Yeah.
So now that
That was so nice to hear from him or speak with him. I haven't talked to him in a little bit. So
yeah, that
great.
was cool. So I think now we've gotten to you coming to LA. So now when you get to LA,
Oh,
Take us through that to where you're at now.
Oh man. Okay, so because of Daryl, the Colonel's excellent training, when I spoke with Carnegie, I asked this stupid question and it still haunts me to this day. And I don't know why I asked it, but again, it was that time crunch thing that I was like so weird about. I asked him like, oh yeah, I told him I trained before with someone that was a Playhouse West alum. Um, uh, when will I get promoted to intermediate? And he's like, we're not in the business of holding people back. So we're just gonna see where you're at with your training and then we'll promote you accordingly. Right. And so I'm like, okay, great. So I go to his class. He has me in there for 2 weeks, something like that. He's like, okay. So credit to Daryl. He set my foundation up really well and I got promoted to intermediate from there. Did intermediate, got to advanced, started doing a lot of plays. And that's when, like I told you about earlier with Holly, she has had and still has such an instrumental part in everything I do and in my career. She's always watched out for me. You know, I don't I don't know why she believes in me so much or if she just knows that I'm like a really hard worker or what. But she was the one who got me hooked up with Carnegie to be able to teach. And with that, when everything shut down, she was like, "Oh, Gar can do social media." I told him I can build a new website, I can run the social media for you, do all that stuff. And I ended up, kind of creating my own position at the school to be able to help. Throughout that time, Holly also introduced me to one of the most wonderful people in the world, and I think anybody who's interacted with him feel the same. Mark Teschner, who's the casting director for General Hospital, and he's won like a gazillion Emmys. No joke. And they just honored him with a really big casting director award too. But got me connected with him and I made my website for him. So I'm like all over the place. I have so many things to say. But he, because I was helping him with his website, he was coaching me. And I got coaching from him. I got coaching from Holly. And when I first came here, um, I can't forget to mention her. I had another one of the teachers at IAFT that worked alongside Daryl. Her name's Shakisha Van Putten. She's based out of Las Vegas still. She really set me up in terms of logistics on how to get to LA. We sat together one day at lunch and wrote out a plan, a 6-month plan on how to get to LA, you know? And it was like, do you have your funds in order? How much do you think you'll need? You probably need a budget for this, and this, and like literally set me up for success, just listed everything. So I didn't come to LA drowning. And that was so, so important and so vital. I think that people don't realize how expensive LA is and how much harder it is than other towns or cities to be able to find your footing. And that's what she helped me do, was really find my footing to be able to just, start auditioning right away. Because she ended up setting me up with her old agents that were based out of Las Vegas, but they submitted in Los Angeles. So they were the ones who were just submitting me, and I luckily booked a lot of commercials. I ended up also working at this restaurant, and one of the servers knew that I was booking a lot. And he was like, "Oh, my manager's having an open call. You should go and talk to him." I'm like, "Okay." So I went to the open call. He was like, "Great, come to my office this day." We met. He said he wanted to sign me. I'm like, "Fantastic." In my head, I'm like, I'm only in my second year here. I have an agent. I'm booking. I have a manager. I'm well on my way to making this real for myself, right? And this is what I want people to hear and really take in about your reps. I loved my agents. I wish that I had taken more time to really, really find more confidence in myself, first of all, and solidify my confidence. Um, and take your time finding your manager. Because if you don't find the right people to back you, if you don't find the right people to encourage you and really see where you're trying to go on your path, you don't want to be involved with them. The hit my self-esteem took being with that manager was brutal. It was brutal. And, you know, it was this thing where I was questioning my worth, questioning my talent, questioning everything about myself. And it showed up in my acting. Because at that point, as soon as I signed with him, it was the least that I had booked ever since I started living in LA. And he would, you know, he ended up letting me go. And when that happened, I was just like, oh my God, like, what's wrong with me? If he doesn't, it's like, they're letting me go after a year. Like, they must not believe in me. I must not be cut out for this. Like, the damage that did to my psyche and my self-esteem, it took a long time to get that back, you know? And it, it was this thing where it's like, they told me, hey, you know, we submitted you to all these people and none of them wanted you. None of them wanted to bring you into their offices. But meanwhile, I'm seeing his interactions with people online and how he is. And I'm like, God, he's actually not very nice. And when I signed with my new agents, which Mark Peschner, who he referred me to, I got into the same offices that he submitted me to. All of the, you know, I got into those offices. So it was this huge light bulb moment of, oh, that says more about him than it does about me. And that's when, you know, and then at that point too, I was obviously very heavily in class. I was teaching a lot. And that's when I started gaining my confidence back. But it took a really, really long time. And I just like, I just want to stress the importance of people making sure to take care of themselves. Like, I know that it might, you know, it feels incredible that someone wants you and all this stuff, but make sure they're the right fit for you. Make sure that they really believe you, in you, and that they want you there, you know? It just felt like I was always an inconvenience to this other person, and you don't want to feel that way, you know? So, um, but now, you know, I'm repped with a fantastic agency, Smith and Hervey Grimes. They work so hard and they're so nice and so understanding, which I love them for. And I am managed by Greg Meyer Management, and he's wonderful. And the whole group of them are wonderful. And I feel very grateful. And Holly was the one who set me up with them, you know? So this is something that, and we'll get into this later, I think, about my corporate life and everything, and um, auditioning, if you will. You know, when I was working at Zappos, I got that big promotion that I told you about that I wanted the whole time I was there. And there were people that got upset that I got promoted. And because there were other people that wanted to be able to interview for the position. And what my boss said was, I'm not interviewing people for this position because Gar has been interviewing every single day that she's worked here. You feel?
Yeah.
How you show up every single day matters. And I worked my butt off every single day, and that showed them that even without, you know, like the option of the promotion being there, I still put in everything I had. And that's the same with your acting classes and your auditions. It's the same thing. You have to show up every single time. People are going to remember that. And if they remember that you work hard, they're going to want to help you, you know? So show up for yourself all the time. And I'm just so glad I like remember that one little tidbit because I feel like it's fully carried into my acting career, you know? If you love it, you work hard, right?
The saying that gets, it's one of my favorite sayings, said it several times on here, but how you do anything's how you do everything.
Yeah.
So
It's
I love that example. Like, you were interviewing for it
every single
already, every
day.
single day.
It blew my mind when she said that. I was like, "Oh, I mean, I guess I have," you know? Because when you do wonder sometimes, you almost have this, like, imposter syndrome. You're just like, "Do I deserve this? Do I like, did I do everything to be able to get this?" There's that doubt and that voice, you know? But then when you look back at how much work you put in, you're like you're able to say like, "Okay. Okay. Okay, maybe I'm allowed." Maybe I'm allowed. I my therapist I recommend therapy to everybody. My therapist said, "You're allowed to take up space, Gar." I'm like, "Okay, maybe I will then." You know, but
And I remember paraphrasing you because I think you told me this story. Again, if I butcher this completely,
don't
please
butcher it, Sam. No.
Yeah. You told me a story once. I think we were rehearsing one of our scenes, and like you were just telling me because I think you were telling me when you had worked. I don't know if it was for Zappos or where it was from, but you said it was hard for you to take time off.
Yeah.
I remember you telling me a story where I don't know if it was your supervisor or coworker where they said, no, take time off and don't check your email. Like, don't check
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
So can you elaborate?
It was my manager.
Okay. All right. So tell us the real
It
story.
was my manager, and I love them so much. Best manager I've ever had. So originally the photo studios for Zappos was based out of Louisville, Kentucky. So I was living there for a really long time. Love Louisville, fantastic little small city. But Zappos decided that they wanted to move the the photo studio operations to Las Vegas, where Zappos is headquartered. The corporate office is there, and they wanted to make it a more, wanted everybody to be in one place. Because, with Kentucky, it's like it's 3 hours ahead, and there was kind of this like discrepancy in terms of time with the people that we needed to speak to and getting things done. So during that time, I was flying back and forth between Louisville and Las Vegas, interviewing new people for the new studio, and um, making sure that everything that was still being shot was still good. That was one of the most exhausting 3 months of my entire life. But then I learned there could be more exhaustion added, not because she didn't want to give me time off. It was just I wouldn't allow it. I felt such a responsibility for getting this studio up and off the ground and making sure that it ran smoothly. We had to hire an 80% new staff practically, who didn't, make the people that didn't make the move from Kentucky to Vegas. And when we were opening the studio, obviously, when you open a new studio, there's things that you don't expect, and things that you have to kind of work around, making new connections with the buyers and the directors that are there and everything else, and catching up on inventory that we hadn't shot yet. And I was working every single day, including weekends. Like, and this is the thing, we had other people, employees, like working on the weekends, and I don't feel right asking my employees to do something that I wouldn't do myself, you know? So I would work on the weekends too. And that was for like, maybe 3.5 months, something like that. And it was exhausting. And I was burning the candle from both ends. You know what I mean? There was like barely any of me left there. And my manager sat me down and was like, Gar, I'm putting you on a vacation. You're taking 2 weeks off. I don't want you checking your emails. I don't want you doing anything. Like, I want you to just take time off. And she's like, if we can't figure out what needs to be done while you're gone, then there's something wrong with our team. And we need to figure that out because you're burning yourself out, you know? So she did. She put me on a 2-week vacation. And, you know, I was doing, during this vacation time, I still wanted to be creative and do all sorts of fun stuff. So my friend and I set up a photo shoot. And for some reason, she emailed my work email instead of my personal email. So I decided, oh, you know, I'll just open up my work email, which was a mistake. Let me tell you, you never know how stressed you were or anxious you were until you open up your email after a week and a half of being gone and seeing all of those emails coming in. And my anxiety level immediately went like just shot through the roof. And I didn't realize how stressed out I was until that happened, you know? And, you know, with the corporate world, there's obviously a lot of political stuff that goes on. There's a lot of things that happen. And you just have to wonder if that's really where you want to be.
Was that a moment for you where you really realized, like, I don't think I want to be here anymore? Like recognizing that?
I mean, there was a specific situation that came up, but I think that was more the nail in the coffin than anything else for me, because even prior to that, it was this kind of thing where I had joined the company because I really believed in their core values. Um, I think there are just certain things that, like, within yourself, you know, Chris Leby actually talked about this at the Film Lab panel this past weekend, but it's just like what aligns with your values, and it no longer aligned with mine, to simply put it.
Yeah.
You know, and that happens, and that's fine. Um, but at that point, you know, I was so burnt out because I was giving everything, everything I had. I mean, I was answering emails at 3 in the morning. You know, I would be staying at the studio late to be able to make sure that things ran smoothly. I was going back and forth between the studio and the corporate offices, even though it was a short distance at that point instead of Kentucky and Vegas. But I I I was giving everything, and what for? For what? You know? And it just wasn't making me happy anymore. And why live a miserable life? Life is so short, you know?
Did you end up reading all those emails that
When I got back to work,
Yeah.
yeah.
wow.
Luckily, you know, they handled most of them, but there were, you know, specific ones to me where I was just like, I have my out of office up, you know, like I'm not here.
I'm imagining like hundreds, if not thousands of
Oh,
emails or something like,
yeah.
yeah.
It was, I mean, when you see your because, you know, it was the mail app, and then it was like only my personal emails coming in. So it was only like 3 or 4, you know, subscription emails
There's
or
a sale
whatever.
going on.
Right, exactly. And you're just like, oh, delete, delete, delete. But then literally the instant it came on, it was just like the number just started blowing up. The little red notification was just like, and oh my God, I still even remember where I was. I was in the mall on the Strip. That big, really, was it like fashion show? Yeah, fashion show mall.
Yeah.
I was standing there. I was shopping with my friends. And I was like, I stood there and I looked at it, and I almost had a panic attack. I remember exactly where I was. The fluorescent lights, the beige tiles.
Oh yeah, I spent many a time.
Yeah.
in that area.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. That's when I think my body started telling me, oh, maybe you need to take a chill pill a little
Well,
bit.
and that's that journey to being honest with yourself,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah, it totally is.
Those are those signs of And again, it's very easy to go, well, that it's just because I haven't been here in a while. That's
Yeah.
why I'm feel like we come up with things. It's like, no, sometimes it is what it is.
Yeah. 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 And don't get me wrong, the job was, it treated me well and whatever else. But
Where was so I'm trying to, could you give me a time frame of what were you down there like when the downtown revitalization was going on? Because I was hanging a lot down there during that time. And
Yep.
it was actually a pretty cool time.
Oh yeah.
In Vegas, like recent years.
Yep.
I don't think it's the case as much right now, but
yeah.
So where was the studio you were at in terms of to where the corporate was?
So
I know where the corporate's at.
Yeah, yeah. So do you know where Ashley Furniture Studio is? It's right by, you can actually see it on the 15. But it used to be the old Walker Furniture store.
Okay.
And they had bought that building out and turned it and converted it into a photo studio.
So you were in like the Summerlin area?
No. Literally right downtown. It was
you were downtown.
Yeah. It was probably like a 5-minute drive from the corporate offices.
Gotcha.
And yeah, when I was there, it was right when the downtown, like especially the container park, that was first opening up.
Wow.
Yeah. And that was part of it too. Tony, the CEO of Zappos, he really wanted to really immerse the company within the downtown experience. So that was part of the move for the studio as well.
You ever go to the Beat Coffee House?
I haven't.
Oh, that's gone now. But that was one of my spots. And
yeah. You want to know? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
No. I was like, I can't drink coffee.
Oh, you can't?
No, I have a really bad caffeine sensitivity and it makes me have the shakes and feel like I'm going to throw up. So I can't ever drink it.
Well, I just have given up caffeine. It's been about over a month now.
Good for you.
Yeah, I was just too habitual.
Dependent.
What about small amounts, like a little bit of green tea or something?
For some reason, matcha has been okay for me.
Yeah.
But if it's black tea or something, I can't. I will not feel okay. It's probably my equivalent of feeling hungover, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've actually read that caffeine, it's not, some people handle it fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, for others, and I think I may be in between. It's like I do handle it, but then the withdrawals I had going off of it, I'm like, well, that doesn't seem like that was probably that great for me.
Yeah.
If my body gets that type of dependency for it. So
when I quit caffeine, as a kid, I drink soda pop. I used to get headaches. Once I quit soda pop, I never got headaches ever again, other than being hungover, of course. But but other than that, like it just shows you. I think the sensitivity thing is just like how conditioned you are to it.
Right. And the thing was, in high school, I drank a ton of it. I drank coffee. I love coffee. I actually really love the taste of it. But it was in college that for some reason it just switched, and that's supposed to be the time you need it the most, technically.
Right.
Like cramming for finals or whatever, and I had coffee one day and I was just like, what is wrong with me? I can't do this. And it turned out anytime subsequent to that time I had coffee, it would not be good for me.
That's interesting. I feel like college age is typically when anxiety would start to kick in too, like where you're like worried about tests. You're like, what's this feeling I'm feeling? Like, why am I not able to sleep right now?
Right.
But I think the poor kids now are getting that earlier and earlier. But like for like us, I felt like it was probably college when you first started feeling like what anxiety is.
Yeah.
Until it goes hand in hand with caffeine, probably doesn't help.
That makes sense. That really makes a lot of sense.
I procrastinated everything to every project, every final. It was like, oh, we'll do it this weekend. And it's like, we got a couple more weekends. And then like next thing you know, you're at the library for 18 hours straight or however long it is trying to.
Yeah. Cram everything in. Yeah. But what were we talking about? Oh, you the Bean coffee shop place.
Yeah. A beauty bar was down there.
Oh,
I'm not even sure what's down there and what's not anymore.
Yeah.
But it was and that was early on in my media career. We were doing media stuff down there, and it was a cool time to be in that scene in downtown Las Vegas. Because
arguably the best time, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Because and kudos to Tony Hsieh. I mean, he really did revitalize that place and put a lot into it down there. And, and it really did feel, to me, it felt like a college type environment. And, and you'd cross pollinate. You'd cross pollinate with the artists the people who work down there, the Zappos people who work down there, and I think that's what they wanted. They wanted people to. They built a community, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Like his goal was to create happy accidents.
Yeah.
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 That was his goal.
Do you miss Vegas at all? Do you ever think back, oh yeah, I could live there again, or man?
No, I could never live there again.
Okay.
All
right.
No.
Let's get to the.
It's not that I don't love Vegas. I still go to Vegas quite a bit. I do still go to Vegas quite a bit because my boyfriend's mom is still there. But for me, I don't know if it's because I grew up in a big city. I even though I lived in a small town, Oakland surrounded us, and San Francisco was right across the bay, and that's where my family was. My mom's side and dad's side of the family. So, or if it's just that I'm just a city girl or something, but it just felt really enclosed to me, if that makes sense. Outside of Vegas, your next big city is where? Reno?
Or Phoenix. So I guess you got Phoenix, then Reno, and then LA. I mean, that's really,
Yeah.
in terms of big city.
Yeah.
Bigger city, yeah.
So to me, it really felt like a desert. I felt surrounded by nothing.
Well, it's truly out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And that's really,
It really is. I mean, I always joke that no one should live in Vegas. Vegas is not meant to be lived in because of how hot it is, but I don't think I could ever live there again, but I'll go visit a lot. I still have people I really love there, but live, no.
Yeah, no, I feel similar. And I always say, if I had to, it's not the end of the world, especially as there's more opportunities happening and stuff there. But someone put it best. And again, I say this with love because Las Vegas is always a home to me. But they said, it's still the desert.
Yeah.
It's going to get a certain temperature.
Exactly.
It's the desert where you come out here.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my gosh, I got mountains and oceans. And I too like the city. I like walking my block.
Exactly.
Walking to the, where there you're just so spread out more.
You have to have a car there.
Yeah. So it's,
yeah.
I'm curious, what about the Bay, San Francisco area and all
I would
that?
love to live in the Bay again, but it's just so expensive.
Yeah.
I love the Bay. It has my heart. I'm going back there in October, though, to see my family. But
okay.
Yeah, the Bay, I would live there in a heartbeat if I could still do everything that I was doing now there.
Yeah.
100%. And if I could afford it, because it's just so expensive. It is so expensive. But, Vegas has good food. What people don't know, though, is Vegas also has crazy monsoons during the summer.
Yes, and it gets extremely windy as well.
Yeah, it's like getting blown by a blow dryer constantly.
And cold.
And
very cold.
Yeah, during the winter it gets very cold. But, that was the first place that I've ever been. I've heard an ad on the radio of turn the other way. They were just like, what will happen to you if you hear the warning and you keep on driving and it just goes silent? So you'll die. I'm like, that's a radio ad. Anyway. But there's, it's Vegas.
Yeah. So I think fast forwarding to present day here now, you're now an acting teacher.
Yeah.
So can you take me through that journey? Where you go, so you got your reps out here, you're auditioning.
Yeah.
And again, kudos to you.
Thank you.
When I heard you had become a teacher, I'm like, well, yeah, she taught me.
And at that point, I was already subbing.
Subbing.
Yeah,
okay.
I was already subbing and learning from Carnegie, and well, you always learn from Carnegie, but specifically from the teaching aspect of things. And now, I'm teaching less because I'm taking care of so much of the social media and the administrative part of things. But when I have the time and if I get asked, then yeah, I'll absolutely teach. I've luckily, though, been fortunate enough where I've been busy auditioning. It is slower. It is definitely slower than years before. I can definitely say that, but I'm luckily still getting some auditions, which is great, you
Right.
know?
And well, two quick questions. What's that teaching experience like for you
Yeah.
when you're teaching, like coming from a beginner student to now you're
Oh, man.
teaching beginner students or whatever level you're teaching?
The teaching experience. Um, I l It's okay. It all I want to be able to provide as a teacher is to be able to convey understanding of a struggle and being able to help guide a person out of their struggle. That to me is what's really rewarding about teaching. Um, as me being a teacher, it's terrifying because it's the same as being a parent, It's like you don't want to screw somebody up. You don't want to say something or do something that will make someone question themselves or doubt themselves or anything like that. All I want to do is help, you know? I remember when I was training with Carnegie, Mr. Carnegie, and Holly calls me on the phone one night. She's like, "Hey, do you want to teach your first class?" And I was like, "This is happening." And I told her, "I think I'm going to throw up." Cuz that's what it felt like. It's so nerve-wracking, and there's just this feeling of, like, all these people looking to you to help guide them. It was just, like, a lot of pressure, but just like auditioning, just like acting, just like anything that you do, it takes practice, and it takes, learning from your mistakes, and it takes stick-to-itiveness, because man, it can be really hard. Especially, when people are defensive or not open to listening, But and you're really just trying to help, but it's really rewarding at the same time.
Do you relate to the statement they say, if you want to learn, teach?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%. Um, I feel like it gives more empathy all around for everyone involved. I've always said everybody at one point in their life needs to have worked in retail or been a server or something, because hopefully maybe people will stop acting like a-holes at restaurants or at stores. But I incorporated that saying actually into when I was working at Zappos. It was just like if people wanted to learn from a different department or, try a different position within the studio, we would schedule that to happen, because I feel like when you learn the things that other people actually have to do, it's not so simple as like standing afar and judging, right? And thinking that they don't do anything. It's like if you really immerse them into those experiences, then there's just more understanding and kindness, hopefully, and grace granted to people than just being mean. you know? So, absolutely, 100%. Yeah. Yeah. And when you teach, you also solidify things within yourself about what you know and what you feel, and um, creates a more solid understanding, especially with this. I feel like it really solidified my understanding of the technique.
Yeah. I read something, I'm butchering this, but it was something along the lines, to find out if you really know something, can you explain it to a kindergartner?
Right.
Because then you really have to, it is, and even on this podcast, there's certain things like I think I know about.
Yeah.
And I start talking about it. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know. I don't really know anything, or I don't know how to articulate it.
Right. Right.
So yeah.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And Holly talks about this all the time too, because in acting, I feel like we use this very general phrase sometimes where it could be very hard to grab onto, where it's just like you have to find it in your understanding. And it's like when someone says that to you, you're just like, what does that mean? I don't even understand what you're telling me to understand, right? And it's based off of what you know of your life that is similar to another situation, right? Like Holly says when she's coaching kids, teenagers or whatever, you know, it's not like you want to traumatize them and say like, pretend all your parents are dead and everybody left you. And it's like, what would make them cry? What would make them feel sad? Their understanding of something being taken away from them that might ruin their world is like, maybe they're really attached to their cell phone and they're getting their cell phone taken away for a week. A teenager that's super into their cell phone is going to cry, you know? So it's just like, that's their understanding of the situation of being sad. So yeah.
It's a good insight.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like you just have to understand what they need to be able to understand what you need. Does that?
No, that makes
Yeah,
sense.
that makes Yeah.
And I did had a question. We're getting closer to the end here, but I did have a what's it like running the social media?
Oh my
Is
gosh.
that a new level of anxiety? Because I mean I run it for this podcast. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Like, it's a ton of work. So it has that
Yeah.
experience been for you.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. When I took over the social media for Playhouse, I think we were at maybe like 1,300 followers or something like that. But now we're at like 7.7K, something like that, a
Wow.
little over.
That's amazing.
Yeah, yeah, which is exciting. But I think it's because I focused on what really was important about our school, you know, and it's not just a school, it's a community, you know. It's really stressful in the way that like social media never ends. It's constant, you know. It's not just I post something and then don't respond to people. You have to create and engage and form that community online too. And it's intense. I think Charlie Soteris, that I spoke to at the film festival, he was like, man, you're like on it. I posted something one time at 11 and you posted it right away. And I was like, you know, I actually have a joke on my personal Instagram that I never post on mine because I'm just too busy working on someone else's socials. You know, like if you look at my personal Instagram, it's pretty bare. It's pretty sad. You wouldn't think that I do that as part of my job.
I relate to that. No,
Yeah.
I as much as the more I'm on the podcast stuff, the more I'm like, shoot, I should probably throw something up.
Yeah.
I still got to throw up. I want to do a post for the festival. And,
Yeah.
like, I thought I was going to do it yesterday. I'll do it today. Well, guess tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know?
But you know, there's ways to help guide you and make it easier for yourself, right? And you know, actors can do this or not, but I set it where Mondays, I try to put something motivational on the page, hearing from other actors talk about things. Tuesday, I try to focus on technique, and then I'll help promote the things that are going on with the school. And then also just throw something fun up there every once in a while, you know, like a funny meme or, you know, things like that, just to keep it fresh and fun. But there are things like programs that you can help schedule and plan your stuff so you don't lose your mind. You know, Notion is a great app, by the way. You should utilize that.
Notion?
Yeah.
I've heard that come up more and more. And what does
Yeah.
that exactly do?
It does a ton of things, but it can help you create like a content calendar. So maybe you film something way in advance, then you can plug it in like, oh, I want this here, and plug it there, and you can set up the like organize your production schedule, and you can know like, okay, we're ramping up to post this on this day, and this is where we want to put this because of this day, that kind of thing, and just like plan it out more so everything's more cohesive.
Will it post it by itself? Will it automate? Can you automate stuff?
I don't think Notion does, but there are things like later Hootsuite, Canva even does it now, you know. But there are lots of programs out there to help you with that. Just so you don't, yeah, because you know, sometimes I feel like for me, unless I get something down on a schedule or a page, I just feel like my thoughts are just like out in the universe, and I feel so overwhelmed, and it just ends up making me go into like freeze mode, you know. So I have to put it down so that I can visually see and not have to physically remember everything in my head. And I know it's on the paper, and what is on the paper is what I need to get done. And it feels less overwhelming when you can just see it like that,
Mm.
or paper online, you know?
Yeah, it's also, I agree with you 100%. It doesn't turn off, and it's not like, oh, 5 o'clock Friday.
Yeah.
Like, don't have to touch this till, and here's the thing. You could if you wanted to,
Right.
but I agree with you though. When stuff happens. Like that's
Yeah.
the thing with the digital age. It's 24/7.
Yeah. It's like Saturday, Sunday. It's like being a stay-at-home mom. Honestly,
Yeah.
it's like there are always people that are going to be on, and there are people, commenting, responding, interacting, and you don't want to leave them hanging in the lurch,
Well, there's probably, I mean, Playhouse is globally known. So, I mean, people probably from other countries are following, and they're in different time zones.
Yes, they are.
You're like,
yes, they are.
we're not naming names, but gosh dang it. Like,
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's no joke when it's worldwide. People really do reach out from all over.
But that makes sense that you would be running the social media, especially with you're just someone that seems very organized
I have to be.
You have to be.
Yeah. It's not out of wanting to be. It's because I have to be. We can talk about mental health really quickly. As of recently, I very highly suspect I have ADHD. And the more and more I find out about it, especially in women, I'm like, I think I have it. And I'm on my way to hopefully getting an assessment. But for my entire life, if I didn't keep myself in some way organized, I would spiral. I would absolutely spiral. I would forget everything and anything. My mom always told me if my head wasn't attached to my body that I would have lost it by now. If that gives you any context of how disorganized I was. It would be things like, I ended up having to train myself where, if I needed something to take with me to go somewhere, I had to put it right by the door, or else I would forget it. I would absolutely forget it. And even though I would tell myself and remind myself things over and over again, and I was like, I'm going to remember, I don't. So I had to organize myself. In some way, I learned to organize myself so that I wouldn't be struggling and grasping at straws to be able to live a life. You know what I mean? And that was incredibly hard to learn. So when people tell me that I'm organized, it's like, it's not because I want to be. Trust me, I would love to not have to be so regimented in terms of needing to write things down, plan things in a certain way so that I could get things done. I wish I could just remember it and do it.
Did that lead to a lot of OCD stuff where you'd be like double checking? Like,
100%.
I can imagine. Yeah.
Yeah. And I would do things like, for example, if I needed something, again, to take somewhere, I would put it in my bag, but I forgot that I put it in my bag. So I would be searching for that thing to take with me and put it in my bag when I had already gotten ahead of myself and put it in the bag already. And always double checking.
Yeah.
Always double checking, making sure all the time. And that's why when Holly, one time she was like, I never have to worry about checking your stuff because I know you have it right. It's because I've already checked it over 100 times. 100 times over, And it got to the point where my brain was just getting so exhausted, and I started seeing a therapist because I was just like, God, I'm in this, this mode of I have so many things I want to do. There's and so many things I need to get done, but I feel like I'm just constantly exhausted. It's more than burnout. Something else is going on. And so I've been trying to actively address those things so that I don't get in my own way of my goals. I think everybody should see a therapist. I'm such a fan of therapy.
I am too.
I've practically made it my entire personality.
Yeah.
I don't think that there's a mistake that the year that I started going to therapy is the year that I started booking a lot more again. I don't think that that's a mistake.
Do you think that's because you were able to talk things out, work things through?
Yes.
Hmm.
And learn more about myself, more importantly. Because I was able, to have someone objectively speak to me about my childhood trauma growing up and things that I'm struggling with as an adult, like people pleasing and um, overthinking things constantly, feeling constantly anxious and all those things. And it just feeling like I can't take up space, feeling like I don't deserve the things that I have and have worked for. Um, and it really helps put things into perspective uh, of like who you are as a person, you know? Just it makes you makes you ask yourself those questions. Like, what do I really want out of life? What will I not stand for? What are my boundaries? There was a lot of boundary crossing with me. And now it's like understanding what those boundaries are and being able to make them without feeling bad about it. And that ends up giving you confidence when you show up in auditions. It ends up allowing you to understand what makes you, like, what moves you, what makes you happy, what makes you sad. I remember there was one performance of Really, Really, the play that we did last year. And I had just had a session with my therapist that Wednesday before the performance. And she had asked me this question of, Gar, you've been alive how many years now? How many years of your life have you lived for someone else and not yourself? And that punched me in the gut. It made me so sick to my stomach and so upset and angry with myself. And I was like, oh man, this is something that bothers me. This is something that gets me. And I was able to ask myself that question again at the performance of the play to emotionally prepare myself. And it was so similar to exactly what I was doing in the play that I just got it. So I think it just it really helps you find understanding about you. And that's really a lot of what acting is bringing you to the table, right? And if you don't do that, then it's just what's unique about you, you know? Um, so I recommend therapy to everybody. I think it's so important.
I got a hot take on that.
Yeah.
I agree. I think it is too. So at our school, Meisner School, it's all about behavior, right?
Yeah.
So the therapy and what you realize is calling out your own behavior is actually quite difficult because your mind gets in the way and you're unaware of it. So that's why I found therapy really helps you. It's like, because you can know your feelings, but sometimes it's hard to say like, well, hey, you're feeling this way, but your behavior is kind of also saying this. And they're like,
Right.
oh. And so then that helps, point to some of the things like that narrative that's running in there or these things that are, you identify with, which ultimately can help with your acting.
Yeah.
And so I think it like goes really hand in hand. So any actor should be doing it or any
Absolutely.
person in general. I think it's very healthy, but specifically actors. So to really kind of get a grip on how you behave on the day to day, because our brain is very
Alive.
very alive and it's very hard to use it to see itself,
Right.
It's like,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%. And not only that, again, acting is very hard. There's so much rejection. And to have a therapist to be able to like talk through those feelings with is so helpful.
Yeah, and my 2 cents, like I think one of the biggest values I agree with you with the boundaries thing, completely. Another piece I got from it was congruent value system. just like similar to what you said about lining up with your values, but really just that option to be able to talk with a third party person. I think that's the most important, because even if you're really cool with your best friend or you're really close with a parent or whatever it is, it's hard to get that objective feedback.
Yeah.
And plus I just like to talk for an hour. And not feel guilty about it.
Right.
Like not feel guilty, because that's the thing too.
I still feel guilty about it.
Because there's some times where, you know, it's a system, right? Like friends vent to friends, and someone's like, oh man, I really let a lot out on that.
Right.
But having that space, because a lot of times too, some of what I said earlier about like sometimes you think you know something, and even in therapy, when you talk it out, you go, oh, well, that actually wasn't that big a deal.
Yeah.
I don't know why my head, like Eric was like, the mind is crazy. It is. It comes up with stuff, but if you keep it in and you don't talk it out, it becomes something it's not.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if that made sense.
No, it completely makes sense, because the thing is with friends and family, it's like, you know, they love you. And even if they're not being biased, they're still trying to make you feel better. Whereas I feel like with therapy, they give perspective. You know, feelings. Your feelings are valid, and this was like my first month of therapy that they just kept trying to like hammer into my head. Feelings are valid, but they're not necessarily facts. They're not facts. Feelings aren't facts.
They're side effects.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, so what you're thinking isn't necessarily what's actually going on. You know? And I think that's so relevant to being rejected for auditions, because number one, hello, you got the audition in the first place. But just because you didn't get called back, or just because you didn't book the part, doesn't mean that it was a you thing. You know, it's maybe there was just some, you know, maybe there's a kid involved and they needed to match whoever would best match the kid that was in the commercial. That doesn't mean you weren't good. You know, it was just someone else was probably just more right. Just because you don't get a part doesn't mean you're not good. And that took a really long time for me to learn.
I love that. Thank you for sharing all that.
Of course.
That was is there anything else that you would like to talk about, or anything that you have coming up, or anything you want to share on this platform?
Sure. So this is another thing about putting everything, you know, you do everything into what you do, right? With the whole, you're interviewing every day. I recently did a web series with Doug Van Beber called Psyche on Sunset. And he co-wrote it with Sean Whalen. And when they first made it, it was a play. They filmed like a little quick thing, like a short film for it. And then they brought it back to stage. And recently they decided to turn it into a web series. I ended up on that project because Doug had known of me. He didn't know about me, not, you know, like he didn't know about my acting, but he knew of me. He knew I was part of the school and all this stuff. And he was like, oh, you know, I was in his screenwriting class and had talked to him here and there. And I did a table reading for him over the pandemic during the lockdowns. And I treated that table read like I had booked that part. Like it first of all, it was a fantastic script, but I wanted to act. I wanted to do something with it, you know? And when Doug came up with this, you know, to make this web series, he was like, oh, I think Gar would be really great from it. I've seen her do certain things in screenwriting class when we read the scripts out loud. So he asked Holly, like, oh, how's Gar? Is she good? She's like, oh, yeah, you'll love her. So it's just like, this sounds so braggy.
Do it anyway. You deserve it. Give yourself some props.
Yeah. Promote yourself.
Okay. My therapist would be right now.
Hey, you're phenomenal. So yeah.
No, but that's it led to something, you know, like I didn't do any of that stuff so that, you know, like, hey, Doug, you know, you want me in your web series kind of thing. I did it because I love it. And I worked hard at it. And that's why he asked me to do the part, And so it was literally when he told me that and he asked me to be a part of that project, I cried. I cried that night because I was just like, so I am doing something right? Like I'm not doing it for nothing. I'm just doing what I love, but like it's moving towards something, So that my advice is just like just work hard and pour yourself into this and make sure to still have a life though. That's really important. And just keep at it, It's hard to give up. I'm not hard to give up. It's easy to give up. But if you remember why you want to do this, and really, if you just love this, just keep on going. Work hard. Work really hard, like really hard.
I think that's the big thing. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's the big, as I've gotten older and more experienced, and you get a little bit of wisdom is, yeah, there's no free lunch. There's no handouts.
Yeah.
Everything requires a lot of work. Even the things you love a lot,
Mm-hmm.
they require just as much work as the things you don't like.
Yeah.
So you might as well pick things you like, but just know you're going to be working hard.
Yeah. Yeah. And in one of the most competitive industries that are out there.
Yeah. With tons of rejection.
With tons of rejection. I get rejected every week. Every week.
Yeah. But I think too, if you just take, you do get numb to it in a way. And I don't mean that in a negative sense. You build that callus.
It's true.
You build that callus like, okay, yep.
It's true.
And I think the faster you build it, the better.
Yeah.
Because then you can just look, you'll probably make better decisions too. Like just with yourself and what you can probably look at roles or opportunities. And even with the podcast, something, oh yeah, that wouldn't be a good fit.
Yeah.
Anyway, like why would,
again, aligning with your values.
yeah. Aligning
right?
with the values. Yeah.
And honestly, it's not about you. It really isn't. There's so many factors that go into things that have nothing to do with you. And it's so interesting. Doug and I were talking about it, or I was talking to Doug about it this weekend. I had taken a workshop with Sean Whalen when he was doing a workshop at Playhouse. And one of the best pieces of advice he gave, and that I still hold on to this day, is always have something to do after your audition. Always be going somewhere or do something after your audition. Just because it's so easy to just sit there and ruminate, of course, reflect, but it's one thing to obsess. And that's what I was doing all the time. I was obsessing. Oh, did I say hello right? Did I do this right? I could have done this, and then I obsessed. And then if I was put on hold for something, or, I would be like, oh my God, checking my email every second to see if that email would come through. And it's not healthy. It's really not healthy. He said he even would throw his auditions away afterwards and not think about it and just move on to something else. Because you did all the work that you could. You did it for them. That's all you could do. Now it's just up to them. And that you just have to hand it off and then move on. Because it takes so much energy from you to obsess over something like that. Do I do that every once in a while? When it's because if it's something that I really, really want, yeah. But for the most part, I've gotten better about just like, do it and go. Forget about it.
Shout out to Doug.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic screenwriting teacher.
Well, yeah, he's a great guy.
Yeah, he's awesome.
It reminds me of the thing Pacino said. I'm just checking Pacino said once, I think it was him, some famous actor said,
one of them.
You literally have to, after you do it, just assume you didn't get it. That's what like I probably didn't get it.
Yeah.
Move on. So I like to have something to do, lined up things. So
yeah,
that's really good. Yeah.
It really helps.
Yeah. Anything else? Anything else you want to?
Oh, I want to thank you for having me on.
Oh,
That's
no.
very generous of you.
No, this is a pleasure. And you're going to get the last word here. Eric, you got any last thoughts for us?
No, thanks for being like vulnerable and talking about all your personal stuff, which, matters because that's what a lot of people struggle with the same thing. So it's nice and refreshing. And so thank you for going there.
Welcome.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks.
And before I give you the last word, Gar, where can people stalk you? Excuse me, follow you. Where can people get a hold of you at?
I'll give you a warning again. I don't post as often as I should. I really should. There's a ton of stuff I have to post. But you can find me at rated_Gar on Instagram. Rated Gar.
I actually love that because I tagged you in a post this week. I'm like, oh, that's genius. And I always, before I give you the last word, Gar, I would say this is a true treat. This is the fact that Daryl picked up the phone.
I know!
The Colonel himself really was a huge full circle moment for me.
Oh.
And I guess one day maybe we'll go sit in on one of his classes
Oh, I would love
in Vegas and do a Dorn activity with him.
I've
And that
always
would
wanted to crash one of his classes.
Yeah, we totally should. I
Yeah.
think that would be great.
It would be awesome.
But no, thank you for everything. It's so great to connect with you. And
Thank
I'm
you.
so glad that we got connected. And I learned so much. I view you as a mentor.
Oh,
and
Thank you.
you taught me so much during that period of acting and artistry that I'll never forget. It was really, I'm glad that before the shutdowns.
Yeah.
I'm glad we got to have that. And in that specific class and the material I will always, for me, that to me is some of the best stuff I had ever done.
Oh,
So
yay.
thank you for helping me.
I'm so glad I could be a part of that. Thank you for letting me be a part of that.
Absolutely. And I always give the guests the last word. What would you like to leave us with?
Be kind. Be kind. And work hard. And I believe in you.
Perfect. Gar, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Sam Dever, the Sam Dever Podcast here, and I just want to thank you for checking out this episode. To watch and listen to future episodes, be sure to follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/@the Sam Dever Podcast. Thank you so much. See you soon.